Prophetess Cebile, 7750 Media. Oh, I should have said sangoma Cebile. Pardon me. In the documentary titled Whitney Houston, The Greatest Love of All, entertainment reporter Ashley Pearson makes the following comments. Number one, she talks about how Whitney Houston died from a mixture of prescription drugs and other substances. And at that time, it was reported that police investigators were looking for the doctors that had prescribed these drugs to her. And then a little bit later on, she goes on about how Whitney Houston sang with a voice that could have been given from the angels. Psychological expert Peter Hughes, I think it is, quotes that Oprah Winfrey said that listening to Whitney Houston was like listening to the voice of God. Misha Paris, who is a singer as well as an entertainment industry commentator and a TV presenter, said that Whitney Houston had it all. She had the looks and she was almost unrealistically beautiful. That's very important because God is going somewhere. So she said Whitney Houston had a very surreal, almost unrealistic beauty. And I actually agree with her. I think Whitney Houston was probably the most beautiful woman. And that's my opinion on the planet. And she said, you don't usually look like that and then have a voice like that in one combination. I've researched Whitney Houston's death quite extensively. And it's clear to me that aside from the doctors who gave her the prescription drugs, there were drug dealers, and underscore that, drug dealers that were involved, and apparently she liked her marijuana laced with cocaine. Cannabis, commonly known as marijuana, or weed, or pot, or ganja, is a psychoactive drug from the cannabis plant. It is used as a recreational drug, but also for medicinal purposes. And recreationally, it is consumed by smoking, vaporizing, and putting in food, and the like. The mental and physical effects of cannabis include euphoria, altered states of mind, loss of sense of time, impaired short-term memory, impaired body movement, anxiety, hallucinations, panic, paranoia, and psychosis. Products of the cannabis plant are typically marked CBD for cannabidiol, and for purposes of this ministry, I will split the name into two. In the first place, you get the word canna or kenna. And then secondly, the second part, the bidiol, will be altered by me to the word libido. So then let's call it CBD libido. In the Bible, there is a village called Cana or Cana in Galilee, where Jesus performed his first public miracle by turning water into wine. That miracle is recorded in John chapter 2. And at verse 10, it says, "Every host serves his best wine first, until everyone has had a cup or two. Then he serves the wine of poor quality. But you, my friend, you've reserved the most exquisite wine until now." This miracle in Cana was the first of many extraordinary miracles performed in Galilee. This was a sign revealing his glory, and his disciples believed in him. There can be miracles in the age of miracles. Leviticus chapter 19, from verse 26, says the following. Number 1, do not use magic omens or witchcraft to predict events by horoscope or signs and lucky days. So do not practice divination, soothsaying, fortune telling, and the like. 2, do not profane your daughter by causing her to be a harlot or a prostitute or a whore, lest the land fall into harlotry and become full of wickedness. The message says, do not violate your daughter, making her a whore. The whole country will soon become a brothel filled with sordid sex. And then in the third place, keep my Sabbaths and fear my sanctuary. I am the Lord. And then number 4, do not turn to the spirits of the dead, and do not seek familiar spirits to be defiled by them. I am the Lord your God. The message says, do not dabble in the occult or traffic with mediums. You'll pollute your souls. A sangoma is a spirit medium who conjures up the spirits of the dead. And in fact, a sangoma even allows the spirits of the dead to possess him or her in order to convey the messages of amadlozi in Siswati, who are ancestral guides and spirits. The people who paid Isaac Masete of the Rudiport Magistrate Court the dazzling bribe have again written sworn statements telling the courts that I undertook a spiritual journey and became a litwasa so that I could practice the sangoma trade. And this is the very thing that the Bible forbids as according to God's commandments. So the Lord woke me up about 3 a.m. this morning. I did my prayer and intercession and worship. And then at 5 a.m., I made a cup of coffee and stood outside in the breeze. And as I was sipping my coffee, I looked up and the trees next door started swaying and dancing to the movement of the wind. Back in my chambers, I watched a video by Gavin Dees, and I'll link it to this video because I don't want to talk about what he said. There were just certain things that I picked up that were very important for me. 2 Samuel chapter 5, verse 24 says, "And when you hear the sound of marching in the treetops of the mulberry trees, then you shall strike quickly, for then the Lord will have gone out before you to strike the camp of the Philistines." Now, King David had inquired of the Lord. To inquire of the Lord is to ask. And that's what my surname means. My surname is Mabuza. And Mabuza means somebody who asks or inquires. So David went to inquire of the Lord on whether he should attack the enemy camp. And this is the answer that God gave. King David of Bethlehem, the birthplace of Jesus Christ, is one of many dead people I have encountered in my dreams. And Jesus is called the Son of David, as if he was King Solomon. Bethlehem is also called the City of David because it was also his birthplace and his ancestral home. Bethlehem is also called Ephrathah or Ephrata, and it means fruitfulness. That's very important, fruitfulness. Proverbs chapter 6, verse 26, in the voice. And please note that code very carefully, because 6, let's say, is for the 6th month of June, or Elul, and then the 26th is the date on which I went to the magistrate court to set aside the protection order that I have been tortured with for the last I don't know how many years. So it says in the voice, for you can buy a harlot with a loaf of bread. Loaf of bread? House of bread. Wonderful. But sex with another man's wife will cost you your life. So you can buy a harlot or a prostitute with a loaf of bread. But sex with another man's wife will cost you your life. I hear that Christmas carol. Come ye to Bethlehem, the house of bread. But it is also called the house of meat. Prostitutes can reduce a man to poverty, and the adulteress steals your soul. She may even cost you your life. At home in my village, we had a very big mulberry tree. A mulberry tree symbolizes divine guidance and God's watchful presence. It also represents sensitivity to God's timing and obedience to his instructions. On the 27th of May 2024, the day on which I was demonically assailed in the incident that was said not to justify a protection order for me, I had merely made a prediction after watching the Netflix documentary titled Ashley Madison, Sex, Lies, and Scandal. It says on the internet, when a dating site for people seeking adulterous affairs is hacked, millions of users' intimate data is exposed, wrecking marriages and destroying lives. My sangoma prediction was that there was going to be a broadcast of a similar nature that would be made by someone who is a friend of the people who now have an advocate in the shape and form of prosecutor Isaac Masete. According to God's laws, adultery and prostitution are crimes, they are criminal offenses. So in the court of heaven, these are crimes. Being a sangoma or even a mad woman is not a crime. And certainly, having a prophetic ministry or a media and publishing ministry is not a crime. Autobiographical and biographical writing and script writing of the same nature are not criminal acts. But now, when the snitch of leaking certain secret files did the broadcast, I was the one who came under attack for it. But Romans 8:28, the Bible promises that God works everything for our good, because we love him and we are called according to his purpose and design. And I'm talking about those of us that are believers in Jesus Christ. So according to his design and purpose and plans, he'll work it out for our advantage. Wonderful. The Guardian published an article about the Ashley Madison story on the 14th of May 2024. So about 2 weeks before I was subjected to an extreme abuse ritual. It is titled Inside the Rise and Fall of Ashley Madison. People literally lost their lives, it says. It is written by Adrian Horton. And stay with me on this one. I was talking about the entertainment reporter, Ashley Pearson. Now I'm talking about a media article published online about the leaking of the data kept by Ashley Madison on their clients who were paying for adulterous encounters. The article mentions the following. Number one, if you wanted romantic partnerships, maybe you check out eHarmony, it says. Number two, for fun and flings, try Tinder. Number three, if you wanted to narrow down the potential pool, there were Farmers Only and Christian Mingle, among other demographic specific sites. Okay. And then number four, if you were married and you wanted to have a clandestine affair, you could make an account on Ashley Madison. Someone named Peyton is quoted as saying, there is an argument that the real villain of the piece is whoever did that hack and published those names. Because remember, the whole Ashley Madison issue was about people's private information and names that were published when the company had promised secrecy and that the data was protected. So the real villain, in my case, is the snitch who did the hack and published those names. But then, as I said, there was an incident after that during which I was threatened that the owners of the names were going to F me up. If Ashley Madison was based in South Africa, it would be subject to South African legislation, and presumably then the POPIA, which is the Protection of Private Information Act, would have been applicable, assuming it was out at that time, or it had been published or promulgated by that time. Ashley Madison, as it turned out, was not particularly cyber secure. Now, as I said in the previous video, I was told, like I'm a 2-year-old child. Oh no, sorry. I was told, like a mad woman who's not with it, that I was committing cybercrime for having a social media account and making commentary on topical issues reported in the media. God is going somewhere, but I will leave it there for now. Thank you for listening.